Morning, everyone. I'm going to call to order the Water, Wastewater, Infrastructure, and Sustainability Committee. Do we have public? No, we do not have any public. We have the minutes of February 6, 2019. Any corrections, amendments, or a motion?
I move to approve.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Item 3 is being withdrawn, so we do have just item 2, and I have a quick question on that. The complaint I have is that when you call the phone there, you can never get a real person. Is there an option that you can actually speak to somebody?
Good morning, Mayor and subcommittee members. We're just sorting through who has the best answer to this question. Karen worked on the overall implementation of the system, but IT oversees it now. So
if you're referring to the IVR, the voice response system, where you call the main number and there are options to, is that your question?
But is one of the options to actually talk to somebody?
To talk to somebody. I will find out about that. I think that you can, but Steen, I don't know if you've had any experience with that. We've been working quite a bit on it lately.
Mayor and subcommittee members, this is Steen Hamburg. He is Assistant Director in the Information Technology Services Department.
Good morning. I'm sorry, Mayor, could you repeat the question specifically, or are you asking if somebody calls a contact center or a call center for the city, if they can speak to an actual person? Is that the
In the water department especially, that's where they, we've had the complaints is they have called and all they get is a recording and they need to talk to a real person. Is there an option on there that they could do so?
I think somebody else is coming.
Madam Chair, the Water Department Assistant Director Brandy Kelso is also here, and she has the contact center
Brandy,
in
what's the real
her
answer?
jurisdiction, so hopefully she can answer that question.
Yes, good morning. I do believe that there are prompts that can get you to an agent. You might have to go through 1 or 2 steps, especially to give your account number and things like that, because it's easier if the IVR has prompted the agent as to what the account is. It comes up faster and those kind of things. But yeah, I do believe there's a point in time where you can ask for an agent, but we'll go through the queues and try to figure out where that is and if we can put it up earlier in the prompts.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Motion to approve number 2?
Can I,
Sure.
now that you brought that up, I mean, there doesn't seem to be 100% certainty on whether we can do this or not. That's concerning to me, frankly. We should know whether you can or you can't definitively, both departments, IT and water. You know, one thing I appreciate, because I'm a customer too, is where you go through the prompts and then it's like, hey, hit 0 if you want to talk to somebody. Some people will peel off. I mean, so I understand you're trying to cut down. That is much better than, and it's companies too, it's not just government, where you have to jump through a bunch of hoops. So you can make it the last option, because I know you're trying to cut down on, you know, how many people we have to hire to do this kind of work, and that's good for taxpayers too. But to make it impossible to get the question answered, that's not right. And so, I mean, I don't understand either how there would be any confusion, because wouldn't we have people then working who are answering these questions? I mean, where would these questions be going if we don't even necessarily 100% know whether you can even do it?
You absolutely can get to the call center
That didn't
person.
come across in the
I'm
first
sorry.
round of answers. Yeah.
Where you can in the prompts.
Okay,
I'm
so that was the
unclear if,
confusion.
like, if you first call, it says dial 0 to get to an agent.
Okay.
Or if it asks you for your account number first and your account information, and then you got the option to go to an agent. I just don't know where in the queues you can. But yes, absolutely, the call center has people there Monday through Friday, 8 to 5.
Yeah,
ready to
computer was
answer.
too full. Whether we could do it, and then we have people sitting around, we have no idea. I wonder what those guys are doing over there. Maybe they're answering customers' questions. Who knows? How would we know? So,
Vice Mayor Waring, there's
good.
a lot of logic in the system, and so based on the workflow,
That doesn't always come across, by the way, but okay, I'll take your word for it.
But based on the workflow, based on the intent of the customer, it depends, or it drives what the user experience would be.
And Mayor, Vice Mayor, based on your comments today, We're going to go check the system and see how you zero out.
Maybe you guys could call yourselves. You know, I just, at some point, that is, for a lot of people, they're never gonna talk to us. No offense, Mayor, they don't know who the mayor is, they don't know who we are. Definitely don't know, no offense, unless you're related, they don't know who you guys are, but they definitely know what kind of experience they had when they called for like the one thing. It kind of undermines, I've talked about this issue before, people's confidence. If this is what our government, and they don't always distinguish between feds and state and us. So if they have a bad experience with this, they wonder kind of what's going on in missile silos in South Dakota or whatever, and understandably so. I'm not trying to be glib. So, you know, let's find out, and then maybe we could have some sort of follow-up, Mayor, if we could,
Okay,
at the next meeting.
surely.
Thank you.
We try to move this along, though? Okay, so I'll move to approve the consent.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Item 4, are we doing a presentation or do it, just anybody has questions? All right, I think that takes us to number 5, the contract award for processing plastics. This sounds like Ginger.
It is indeed Ginger and Joe Giudice also, as well as other staff. This is a very exciting contract award. I'm very, very jazzed about this one.
Thank you, Karen. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and subcommittee members, we're here, as Karen said, to give you an update on a very exciting opportunity for the City of Phoenix. It's one of our latest efforts to transform our waste to a resource. And as Karen said, here with me today, I have Assistant Public Works Director Joe Giudice, as well as Joseph Roselle, who is our project manager assigned from Community and Economic Development Department. So they're going to brief us on our new, what we're calling a proposed contract award to turn plastics into fuel. Clicker. So just a little bit of background and a reminder for the public. Our Reimagine Phoenix goal is to divert 40% of our waste from the landfill by December 31st, 11:59 p.m. 2020.
Closer.
We're going to take it down to the wire. But we say that we're doing everything we can to get us to that 40 by 20 goal. To date, we're at a 33% diversion, and that is up from 16% when we started in 2013. So plastics. The plastics that you're most familiar with would be plastics number 1 as your water bottle that you have, Mayor. That's what we call PET, and there is a current market for that, and it is strong. We basically get about $189 per ton each time we're able to recycle a ton of plastics, number 1, our water bottles. Plastics number 2, there is a market for as well, and that would be known as your milk jugs, or HDPE. The market for that right now ranges from $383 a ton to $646 a ton. So plastics 3 through 7. In the past, what would happen is we would bundle these, and that's what you see up there pictured. And there was a market for it in China. Back in February of 2018, China actually implemented the China National Sword, which basically banned the U.S. and other countries from sending certain materials, 24 types, including these plastics 3 through 7, to China. So we no longer have a market for it. And if we don't develop new technology and find a market, then those items will be landfill. What we've done, though, is we did find that there is value for plastics number 5, which would be your yogurt cups, polypropylene. And so what we've done is we've slowed down our MRF equipment, and we're separating out the number 5s, and there is a market for that, and it's currently paying $220 a ton. But what do we do with the rest of those 3 through 7s? So that's why Joe and Joe are here today. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Joe Giudice.
Thank you, Ginger. Good morning, Mayor and subcommittee members. Great to be here with you this morning. So plastics have been a growing part of our solid waste stream for a number of years now. And it's therefore become a growing challenge for us in terms of managing those plastics. And I think you got to see a little bit of that firsthand when you visited the North Gateway facility about a year ago or so. And so there's been a lot more research also in recent years about the impacts of plastics in our environment. In particular, there's been a lot of research, and I'm sure you've seen some things about impacts in our oceans and waterways. But there's also impacts in our desert environment, in our waterways, in our rivers, in our lakes, and our washes. And so, we certainly want to mitigate those environmental impacts. At the same time, we need to recognize plastics have a lot of value. Their flexibility in being made into all kinds of different products is why they continue to grow in use. And so it's also been part of the challenge for us because every year they're coming up with new formulations of plastics, mixing together different types. And so from a recovery of resource perspective, that makes it very challenging to find markets when they need all different types of mixes of plastics. So let me talk a little bit about what are some of these other plastics that we see in the 3 through 7 range. PVC is, so the plastics industry has come up with this numbering system for plastics. So they call these number 3 plastics. We do not see a lot of PVC in our residential recycling program. You know, PVC is really common, for example, in irrigation pipe and things like that. So this is more common in like a C&D, construction and demolition waste industry, where you see more of these plastics. Then there's number 4, which is often referred to as film plastic. It's your grocery bags and other types of film. In its first life anyway. Typically when film plastic's recycled, you'll see it in things like plastic lumber and plastic furniture and things like that. We've talked about plastic number 5 already, polypropylene. So plastic number 6, oops. Boy, I can't even see so styrofoam is what we commonly know as plastic number 6, or polystyrene is the plastics terminology for it. And then they just take all the other plastics and kind of group them into a plastics numbered 7, but it's all kinds of things. Here's some examples of Tupperware or a naphthalene cup or an Nalgene cup, I'm sorry. But there's all kinds of different plastics in this compound, especially where they take all different formulations and make some kind of a lining product or a laminate or something like that. That's all that type of plastic. Okay, so it's spring training time. So I thought I'd use a baseball analogy. Before I turn it over to Joe, and and he's going to discuss our RFP process, we're kind of swinging for the fences when we do some of these proposals. And when I say that, we are looking for not only just a solution to take waste out of the landfill. That's the more simplistic view. We're really looking for a true circular economy solution where we can drive economic development, private investment, job creation, and taking this resource and remanufacturing into some new product. And plastics are made from virgin oil, so there's clearly a resource value in plastics. And one of the other things I want to highlight is we were really focusing our RFP on the environmental considerations of whatever the solution was going to be, and I think Joe will be able to cover that a little bit more. So I'm going to turn it over to Joe to discuss the RFP.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning, Mayor and members of the subcommittee. As some additional background, the city did a waste characterization study, and in that it tells us that there is a lot more of these low-value plastics than what we are currently capturing right now in both the recycling and the waste stream. So with these, landfilling these materials is not going to be a viable solution for us. As Ginger mentioned, in wake of the China National Sword, these took on greater priority for us. They were always on our radar as an opportunity, but now we really wanted to come up with a solution around these hard-to-recycle plastics. So through the city's procurement process, we issued a plastics number 3 through 7 diversion request for proposals. In that, we were seeking 1 to 2 entities to take these materials and transform them into a product. And we were interested in opportunities around waste to product, waste to fuel. Of course, with those proposals, we would not entertain any proposals that outlined incineration or combustion technologies. We wanted to keep it broad and general to really let the private sector drive the innovation around what they ultimately do with these products. In terms of what the city was looking for in a proposal, the RFP emphasized 4 key criteria. Obviously, qualifications and experience is going to be important to us. We wanted someone that had demonstrated experience and a track record of helping municipalities divert these materials from the landfill and then, of course, turn into a product. Proposed technology was also a key criterion for us in that we didn't want this theoretical proposal with no proof of concept. We wanted realistic, feasible technology where they could take the materials and, again, turn it into something. The last 2 would be business plan, financial return, and benefits to the city. And with all that being said, those are the 4 key criteria, but this group here has been tasked with populating the Resource Innovation Campus with ventures that help the city divert material from the landfill, and as Joe mentioned, build this idea of a circular economy and make it a reality. So we obviously had a clear preference for any company proposing to locate on our 40-acre Resource Innovation Campus. Now, as we look at the timeline, last summer we issued the RFP. We received 3 different proposals along the waste to fuel categories, and what we did internally is assemble a team of evaluation team with varied experiences and expertise, including individuals from Public Works Department, Community Economic Development Department, along with experts in chemical engineering, entrepreneurship, and then of course, representative from the plastics industry. The interview was held the end of January, and from that interview, the evaluation panel, unanimously recommended Renew Phoenix be awarded this plastics 3 through 7 contract. Now, just a quick word on our recommended proposer, or the panel's recommended proposer, Renew Phoenix. It's a joint venture with a company you could read there, Generated Materials Recovery. They're a local firm. What's interesting about this firm is that they are going to help the group source additional plastic in addition to city feedstock. So that was an important piece for us. And what they do is they actually they provide recycling and waste services to about 100 different manufacturing operations around Greater Phoenix. They have clients in Colorado, in Utah, and then of course the second piece of that joint venture is Renewlogy. Now this is the technology component of it. It's the plastic to fuel. They make it all possible. And they have facilities in Salt Lake City, Utah, Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada, and they service the city of Boise, Idaho. And so at this time, I'd like to share with you just a brief video to give you a somewhat deeper understanding of what they do. And this is from a local news outlet in the city of Boise.
I just want to say one word to you.
When The Graduate came out way back in 1967, plastic was a punchline.
Are you listening? Yes, I am. Plastics.
Dustin Hoffman's confusion was understandable because plastic was in its infancy.
There's a great future in plastics.
Turns out the joke was on us. Plastic is now in everything.
It's so hard to get away from plastic. It really is, even if you're trying really, really hard.
The problem with plastics is they're everywhere and they don't decompose, which means they fill up our landfills and end up poisoning our waterways.
It's getting into the fish and it's making its way up the food chain, and eventually it impacts humans as well.
But where some see nothing but environmental disaster, MIT graduate Priyanka Bakaya saw opportunity.
How long does it take to go from this to this?
So it's roughly an hour.
Bakaya's company, Renewlogy, can take all types of plastic and literally melt it in an oxygen-free environment into diesel fuel.
You're not adding or removing anything from the plastic, you're just taking it back to its basic molecular form. And you can do that in a very efficient way.
The proven clean technology is proprietary and relatively new, but it came just in time for the city of Boise.
And we talked about that in August when it happened, that if things really start to transform with plastics in China, this could be a solution.
When it starts in the spring, the city will send its plastic to this plant, but eventually Renewlogy wants to bring the plant to the city.
We really think the key to making sure that this becomes widely adopted is doing these sort of smaller modules that can be co-located right at the waste site.
Imagine a plastic conversion franchise at every recycling plant in the country.
Certainly if this is successful in bringing these materials to Salt Lake City, there is an opportunity to potentially have a unit here in the Treasure Valley.
There is competition, but Renewlogy says it's the only company that can make scaled down plants the size of a tennis court. And now that every city in the country is having to find a new place to put its plastic, Renewalogy says there really is.
It's a great future in plastics.
Roland Barris, 6 on your side.
What do you think of that?
Yes, I will.
Enough said. That's a deal.
Okay, great. So thank you for that. And now that you have a better idea for their proposed operations, you saw the operations there, it's going to be very similar to what they want to do here in the city of Phoenix. As you can see, I want to share with you a few different highlights for the project proposal. There's a clear economic development impact here, and that they will create 10 to 15 jobs within the city of Phoenix. They will invest about just over $5.5 million in their own private capital into this project. And as we expressed earlier, we had a clear preference for someone wanting to be on our Resource Innovation Campus. So their proposal was actually that they want to establish a 30,000 square foot processing facility on that 40-acre campus. What's interesting about this footprint is that it's all encompassing right now, and it actually allows for the growth, their next stage of development, which would double their capacity for processing per day, which we'll talk about momentarily here. The anticipated contract will be for about 10 years with up to 2 10-year renewal options. And the reason that we're all staying here today with the Reimagine Phoenix initiative is to keep stuff out of the landfill. In their first phase, diversion will look like about 10 tons per day, which translates roughly to 3,600 tons annually. Again, this is all material that will not be going to the landfill. So at this time, Mayor and members of the subcommittee, I appreciate your attention. I'd like to turn it back over to our director, Ginger Spencer.
All right, thank you.
Yes, you may.
So you gave us some numbers, but, you know, a little bit out of context. So is that a lot or a little per day, per year? I mean, how much would be diverted? Like what percentage or something a little more
Yes.
understandable for us who don't know?
Yes. So, Vice Mayor, what we do know overall are plastics 3 through 7s. In Phoenix, we process about 521 tons of these type of plastics each year. But valley-wide, there's 3,000 to 4,000 tons available. Specific to this contract, I'll ask Joe Giudice to share a little bit more detail to address your question.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor. So our market for this kind of low-value plastics, we've kind of captured what we can. With an end market that can actually take the material and create some demand, I think it opens up opportunity for us to divert more material. So the answer to your original question is 3,000, considering we're handling several 100,000 tons of material a year in totality. It's not that large. Mixed plastics is a small part of our recycling stream right now. There's a lot of it in our garbage stream. There's a lot of mixed plastics going to our garbage stream. So the opportunity exists in the future for us to move those mixed plastics from the garbage stream to our recycling stream and remove those from the landfill. I can't commit to say that we'll be able to do that right away, because I think we'll have to be creative in how we do that, but there's that opportunity exists. And in our garbage stream, I think
Can I ask a question, Mayor, to this point? So I was no way was should not be interpreted, even though it came from me, that it was a negative question.
Nope.
So we do trial programs all the time. So if you just interpret it like that, even we do stuff in one neighborhood to see how it works. So this could be akin to that, even if it's a small percentage. That wasn't really what I was getting at. But you touched on in your answer, anything that's diverted is a good thing if you can turn it into something else. For the very reason that you suggest, it might growth. If it actually works, then that's fantastic. And really, our taxpayers' investment in this is pretty negligible, right? I mean, zero? I mean,
Vice Mayor, you are correct. The city taxpayers, ratepayers are not paying anything for this. Our contribution to this project is basically providing the waste, the feedstock.
yeah, we're giving people our garbage so
Yes.
that they can do something good with it. I didn't see a downside there, so
That is
I was
right.
kind of getting at that. But then you touched on something that is a different issue about how much of these plastics are going into the regular trash.
Mm-hmm.
Shouldn't they be going into the recycling already? So, I mean, that's a different issue that the company really can't help us with unless they're going to sort our actual trash, which they probably would be loath to do. So, so that is a different thing. So really the onus would be on us to get more people to put the plastics 3 through 7 into the recycle bin, where they already belong.
So Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Subcommittee members, you are correct. So I do want to add back to Joseph said that investment from the company is actually going to be 5.5 million capital investment, and then there'll be a lease return back to the city. So for us to not have to contribute anything financially and get that return, that is awesome. In regards to plastics 3 through 7 or any type of plastics that are still in the garbage container as opposed to the recycling container, we have a program called Oops Shine On program. So Joe Giudice is leading that effort with our solid waste team, where we are actually going out area by area, and we're going to come through and we'll just take a look to see what's currently in the garbage and what's currently in the recycling containers. So Vice Mayor, if we're in your district, we're going to get a lot of shine-ons, right? They're recycling great.
Or I'll get some hate mail, because I have actually heard from people who, I guess,
But
the criticism of how the recycling wasn't as deftly handled as it might have been, I guess. So people were like, the city's like bagging on me.
No.
I'm like, don't take it like that. I explain, so I am aware. You haven't done it to me yet. I am very proud of my recycling and as I sort through the stuff thrown in by my kids and stuff that really shouldn't be there. So I am bracing for the day when you tell me I'm doing it all wrong and have been for years, as I was feeling so smugly superior all this time about how I was recycling. But another personality quirk of mine. But you guys don't have to laugh so knowingly, by the way, when I say stuff like that. But I mean, I think that's certainly, I do think if you can frame it to constituents, citizens, in a way that, look, this really is going to make a difference.
Yes.
I mean, you're upping the incentive. Rather than we're going to get some bucks back from China or something, we're going to turn it into fuel. So we have to do less of some other stuff that might hurt the environment, whatever that is that this would be replacing.
Yes.
And that we won't be putting the stuff in the landfill, which make this livable.
Right.
I mean, it's a bing, bing, bing. It's a pretty nice nexus. It's exactly, I think, the kind of program we should be doing. And our investment is 2.0. I would say, except, and I don't mean to be needlessly critical, but sometimes I just can't help it, apparently. But we will probably have to do something to get people's minds around this. You're already doing that something, so you're doing it house by house, and that's a good thing, but that's going to take a while with as many houses as we have and residents as we have. But I do think that is a sellable thing to people to really incentivize behavior in terms of recycling. It is slightly disappointing, not judging, just saying, plastics would seem like an obvious one that would go into the container. It just makes you wonder what else is slipping through like I used to recycle pizza boxes, and I didn't realize if it had some, food waste on it, then you can't do that. So I found out, but that's a little more nuanced than plastics, which I would have thought would be more broadly stated. And it sounds like you were saying, again, in Joe's answer, that most of the plastics still go to the landfill. Is that a fair statement? That's why I interpreted what he said. I could be getting it wrong.
And I just want to help provide a little bit of clarity. Some things, for example, styrofoam, we don't ask people to put that in the recycling container. There are certain of these plastics, when I reference that some of them are in the garbage container, because there has not been a market. Those wouldn't have been allowed to be bundled and sold into the China market. This new technology, though, could accept those materials. That's where I say there's opportunity not only to increase how we divert the plastics we were already in our recycling program, but to actually get more plastics that we weren't previously allowing. And that's where I get a little bit nervous.
A personal example, I'm sorry to interrupt. So the styrofoam. So I did know that you weren't supposed to put styrofoam in there. I don't remember when I learned that. It's probably some article in the paper, maybe before I was in the council. Like the pizza boxes, I actually had to get on the city council before you guys were like, no, don't do that. I think we did a show together. I felt stupid, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know. I was trying to do the right thing. And I guess I'm trying to be humorous and probably failing miserably in the effort. But I mean, people who are putting stuff in the recycling bin, by and large, I know, Joe, you've talked about some exceptions, they're trying to help. They just need a little more guidance on how to do it. Your program is doing that. But like the styrofoam, I knew that. But so this weekend, we happened to get a couple things that had a fair amount of styrofoam. I always feel bad throwing that stuff in the trash. But under this, you would now be saying, we changed, put it into the recycle. Is that what would happen if this became more widespread?
Yes.
Here, I'll just take out the specific example.
Yes.
You're saying ultimately more stuff could go in the blue container than in the green container, because it's now would have a use.
Yes.
Is that a fair statement?
So Mayor, Vice Mayor, and subcommittee members, there are a few things going on here. So from a education standpoint, it's multi-pronged, right? So we want to educate our residents on how to recycle more, how to recycle right. What are the things, the top 10 things we want you to focus on in putting in the recycle bin? To your point earlier, plastics should be an easy one that they are putting into the recycle bin, with the exception of plastic bags.
Right.
We are also trying to recapture products, plastics that currently were recycled, but in an international market in China. Now we're trying to recapture those plastics, and then creating the economic development opportunities. In our messaging to the public, we want to keep it simple, and we don't want to change how we're doing recycling. And some cities have taken that direction. But if we keep changing, if we say today we're taking pizza boxes and tomorrow we're not, or today we're, taking plastics ones, but we're not going to take plastics sevens, that is confusing to the public.
That's too much detail.
Yes, so the onus is on us as a waste management team to figure out solutions, right? Because the material at the end of the day is recyclable. So that's what we're working on. And to your point, most of residents are trying to do the right thing. Our colleagues in waste management call that wishful recycling. And so it's our job to continue to educate and to keep the message simple and to do whatever we can with our current resources to reduce the contamination, increase the recycling, and then make sure that there are markets there so that there is ultimately a return on that investment from our residents. So that's some of the stuff we're doing, and I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, and I will say, you mentioned the plastic bags, but didn't say what to do with them. You can take them to Fry's, Safeway, and so forth. So for the 3 people who are watching us at home, it's something good you can do with it. It's plastic that does not go, because I know that gums up your machines, right? Yeah, don't put the plastic bags in the container. All right, sorry, Mayor, to take you off course, but.
Well, since you asked that, I still don't understand.
Okay.
Are you saying that right now you can't use styrofoam?
So
it doesn't go in the recycling can, it goes in the garbage can.
Right. So
are you saying when this program starts, it can then go in the recycling can?
So to clarify and to be clear,
Okay.
Joe was
That's what I
saying,
thought.
so right now, styrofoam, right? So we know all the plastics and the numbers and that sort of thing, but to the public, it's styrofoam. And styrofoam right now is not recyclable. There is no market for it. Joe was saying that potentially through innovation, through technology, maybe we can find a market for it, but we want to find the market, we want to find the technology, we want to test it, and we have to be really clear that it's strong before we would make any exceptions to our current rules of allowing styrofoam specifically, or any other thing, into our recycling stream. So right now, styrofoam is not recyclable, and we want that in the garbage can.
Are the 3 through 7 recyclable right now?
No, no ma'am.
That's what I thought.
No,
So you will continue to sort those out? Is that what you plan to do? From the regular garbage, Joe?
So the plastics, other than 1s, 2s, the plastics that people put in the recycling container go through our sorting facility, okay? We're creating one product, so like your water bottles and soda bottles and things. We're creating number 2 product, which is your milk jugs or your laundry detergent bottles. And we're creating the polypropylene product, the number 5, so your yogurt cups and things like that. Those are being kind of bundled in like bundles of material and being sold. The rest of the plastics will be captured from the recycling facility and go to this new company if they are successfully awarded at full council, and they will then process those into the fuel product.
Okay, and what happens to the fuel? Where does it go? Who gets the profit?
So the
I'm asking hard questions. Sorry.
Mayor, no, it's a great question. We're actually meeting this afternoon with our fleet fuel folks to see if we could potentially utilize that fuel right on site. Again, part of that we consume diesel fuel at that location for our heavy equipment. So does our composting contractor, our MRF operator. So if there's the opportunity to utilize that fuel supply and us to buy that fuel instead of the other fuel we buy, but we haven't, so otherwise they will sell that fuel.
Okay.
So we may buy it or someone else may buy that fuel.
And do they tank it right out, or do you have to store it while it's up for sale?
I mean, there's going to be some storage, and that will be worked through fire permits and all the appropriate permitting. There will be some level of storage of material that they make before it's sold.
And how many gallons will that produce a year?
I think we said 1 million gallons, or they said 1 million gallons a year worth of diesel fuel would be made. And I'll point out that making diesel fuel from plastics has a 75% lower carbon emissions impact than making diesel fuel from fossil oil.
That's good.
Can I ask another one? Sure. If you're done. So I think to the mayor's earlier point, if I was watching this at home, wanted to do the right thing, blue container, put your plastics in, and then you guys sort it. It's not up to the constituent, because to our point earlier, Ginger, if you have like a 7-item list of this goes there, that's not realistic for the vast majority of people, understandably so. So, but to the mayor's point, you guys will sort it and get it to the right spot. What's recyclable now versus what's not, what goes to the landfill, and so forth. That onus is not on the people at home.
Vice Mayor, you're correct. The onus is on us.
Any other questions? We do have 2 cards. Patricia Ryder?
Hello, Mayor and council members. Thank you for entertaining this proposal. I'm with ASU. I'm also a City of Phoenix resident, and this proposal is something that has gone through our EDA-funded Risen Incubator program, and we know both GMR and Renewology, and this would be a fantastic win for the city that has become known as an innovator in circular economy and a leader in sustainability. This is a double win. It's very rare that sustainability or waste management has an economic development opportunity, so I encourage you to consider this.
Thank you. Alicia Marcel?
Good morning, Mayor and the rest of the committee. Thank you for having us. I am also from ASU and a proud resident of City of Phoenix. This partnership has been tremendously successful, and I think this showcases the result of the work that we've done and collectively been working on over the course of about a year. And I think something to think about with this opportunity is it's going to really put Phoenix on the stage as a leader in this space. Phoenix is not the only large city or even small city that's trying to find innovative ways to deal with what's happened with the China ban. And this will showcase some opportunities, not just from the waste management side, but economic development and how people can innovate to find solutions. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Do I have a motion?
Can I say one more thing?
Oh, yes.
About this, so it's a comment to something the mayor said earlier, who profits and so forth. I assume something like this probably at the moment, maybe nobody, or, they're probably investing a lot of capital. But if it's successful, obviously, the person we saw in the video from MIT could become a billionaire or something. Okay, whatever people think about the profit motive and what have you, if that diverts a lot of our solid waste from the landfill is better than the environment, then that billion is well earned. So, they're probably spending all their time and people are investing and so forth. If they do start to make money hand over fist, then we will revisit, I'm sure, hey, now we've got a product that you want. But at the moment, they're kind of doing us a solid, no solid waste pun intended, by constructing facilities so taxpayers don't have to, that might ultimately really dramatically benefit. You saw the environmental concerns that were highlighted in the, I think it was the video you guys showed. That's a good thing. That just seems like a win-win for everybody. this contract isn't for like forever. It might be quite a while before they're turning a profit or anything else. Maybe it'll go faster, we can only hope, than we know, but there's no way to predict that. It could turn out to become nothing, like a TV pilot or something. It doesn't get good ratings. I mean, at some point, you know, I don't see that as a risk for the city. We're not really out anything. It is certainly a risk for them, their careers, their capital, everything else. But I do think ultimately the beneficiaries would be the taxpayers and the environment. And so I encourage you to go forward, and then if we need to revisit the terms, that to me is a lesser consideration to be discussed down the road. So,
Actually, now I'm going to sound like he usually does. Are you writing those contracts so that if the renewals, that can be a point of conversation, so that if it's highly successful, perhaps we could earn some money?
You did sound like me.
I know.
So, Mayor and subcommittee members, yes, we are looking at that as a part of our final negotiations if this is recommended that we move forward with this contract. So we will be looking at potential revenue share returns to the city as a part of negotiation, and at what point does that trigger, as well as this is a 10-year agreement and continuing to watch what happens with the market as well. So we don't want to be in a position where we are giving this material because currently there is no market, but what if the market does turn, right? And there is significant revenue, and so we're not taking advantage of that. So that is part of the negotiations on both sides, and to your point, creating that win-win for both organizations.
Good. Okay. Do I have a motion?
I move to recommend this to the council at large. I'm really excited about this program. Hope it takes off.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6, update on city actions addressing urban heat.
Mayor, members of the subcommittee, I'll briefly introduce this as our speakers are coming up. As we know and we've discussed on a few occasions, we know today that the future is hotter and drier. So a couple of years ago, we were challenged to come up with strategy. What are we going to do in the face of this increasing problem of urban heat? And when we have that kind of problem, one of the first things we do is we look to ASU to say, hey, how exactly would you recommend that we tackle this issue? And so over the last couple of years, we've worked closely with them, as you will hear, to identify what this problem is. And then over the course of that time have developed partnerships with the community to come up with strategies. So with us today, of course, is Mark Hartman, our Chief Sustainability Officer, Michael Hammett, our Chief Service Officer, and Chuck Redmond, Professor at ASU in the Sustainability School. So I'll let them take it from here.
Good morning, Honorable Mayor and members of the subcommittee. It's good to be here, and it's a really interesting, the plants and trees in the region are in many ways desert adapted, and also we as a people are desert adapted. We choose to live here, we enjoy and appreciate living here, and so there's a long list of things that we have done in how to make it actually a very enjoyable lifestyle to be here and how to do that. But one of the things that we haven't as a city done is have an overarching perspective of what if we actually had a strategy that holistically looked at all the things we do, the infrastructure, the investments we make, that actually addressed heat in the long term. As humans, we greatly overestimate what we can accomplish in a year, but greatly underestimate what can be done in 20. And you think of the changes in Phoenix in the last 20 years, what can be done over the next 20 if we were holistically had a framework by which to evaluate heat. And why it's a significant concern is, as you know, our summer heat in Phoenix and how it's definitely, there's many, Phoenix is hot is our byline, but also it's also hot. And so recognizing that, and the National Weather Service actually kind of set the record in saying, hey, it can be up to 21 degrees hotter in the city than the surrounding rural environments up to that. And it's interesting, on average, 3 degrees warmer in urban environments in the surrounding rural areas. And so What is that, and how do we do that? And probably a real catalyst of this conversation was actually a published paper in ASU from a number of years ago that actually looked at two neighborhoods in Phoenix, just 2 miles apart, and one had a 13-degree average surface temperature difference than the other. And as we've had conversations with businesses in the community, they say, I'd like to live in the neighborhood that's 13 degrees cooler, you know? And so recognizing the importance and what can we do to do that, and why it's really to accentuate it, that actually urban heat actually can have an impact on us. It does have an impact on us. That we've had more than 70 deaths last year related to urban heat and thousands of hospital visits. And what is the cost of that to us, as far as the cost on our 911 service and the things that are happening, and days lost and time lost in our workplaces? And particularly, how is that affecting vulnerable populations that are more exposed to the effects of heat over time? The reason it's so pernicious is that heat is like an invisible storm. It's not quite as obvious. Yet if we gathered all of our heat-related deaths as a single instance, it would be considered a national disaster. And so we need to think about being holistic and planning in that perspective. And so we as a city have done a list, and I included sort of in the appendices a long list of actions of things, and it actually was really inspiring as we kind of shared it with departments to say we captured all the main things. I said, this is really inspiring, all the things we've done as a city. It's really great to read through this, and very interesting. And so certainly, as a couple examples, the Tree and Shade Master Plan, a goal to double our tree canopy. As we look to implement that, what an impact that would make, and where do we put those trees? And many shade examples throughout the city, looking at how we do that and how do we create these shade routes. And you know, currently it's interesting from a planning perspective. Right now, it's kind of onus on a business if they want to create shade over a sidewalk, that they actually, okay, you need a revocable permit, and need to go through this process and expense to do that. But what if we're actually, as a city, encouraging businesses, particularly along certain corridors, to encouraging them and finding ways to give them incentives to actually create shade and create cool corridors throughout our city? And how could we do that? And so I really like the Walkable Urban Code, a national best practice, and I'd really applaud the planning group for this, very innovative. It requires 75% shading around new developments in sort of our high density areas. And I would say, how can we expand this and to other high growth areas in the city? How can we put the overlay of a Walkable Urban Code in other areas throughout our city? So lots of good examples of great things we've done. And but the conversation in the last 2 years really came to a peak as the Bloomberg did the mayor's challenge, and we became a champion city for that. And with that, under the inspiration of winning $1 million, we kind of looked at, okay, what would it be and what can we do around heat related to this? So kind of walk through this whole effort. Michael Hammett is here, our Chief Service Officer, who kind of led our application, kind of highlight the successes we had as we went through this Mayor's Challenge.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the subcommittee. So as Mark mentioned, a lot has been going on at the city in terms of mitigating extreme heat and urban temperatures. And that's been the direction of Mayor and Council over many years, and with support from a variety of departments, and including, Mark mentioned, planning and development in terms of walkability and items like that. We had an opportunity in late 2017, Bloomberg Philanthropies reached out across the country and asked city leaders to determine what one of their most pressing issues was and a solution to address that issue. So we answered the call with direction from Mayor and Council, and 320 other cities did answer the call as well. 35 were selected, and Phoenix was one of them. And what we determined was one of our pressing issues that fit the criteria of Bloomberg was urban heat and the rising urban temperatures. And our solution was to create a first of its kind in the nation heat mitigation plan, comprehensive plan that we have called Heat Ready Phoenix. And what the idea was that we were going to go out into the community and start with residents and business owners, because that was key in terms of addressing this in a comprehensive way. So we went out into the community and we had about 15 prototypes that we came up with that could potentially mitigate urban temperatures, and we wanted to test those. So we had the opportunity to go out and do that in a variety of different locations. And the council members and the mayor up here on this, in this subcommittee were involved with this, and we're continuing to move forward in your districts. We have projects coming up all the time. One of the most significant tests that we did was with Mayor Williams, and you invited us to one of your breakfasts. And we had a bunch of your residents out in this room, and the first thing they said to us was, oh, please, you're not going to tell us that it's hot. We already know it's hot. So we thought, oh, we're in trouble. So once we got to talking with them and we broke out into groups, we found that pretty much everyone in the room had a story to tell about urban temperatures. And there was either a person, a loved one, or themselves that had a significant issue. Some involved serious injury and long-term effects of heat. So we went out into the community and tested. About 300 residents were involved with this. One of our other prototypes was in the Edison Eastlake neighborhood, and we wanted to test different bus shelter prototypes. And so we gathered groups from, with the support of the housing department and the transit department, and we tested prototypes of what bus shelters could look like and what they currently look like. Residents knew exactly what they wanted. These are folks that are dependent on transit, and when it's 114, 120 degrees out, they know what they need, and what came up was shade. They wanted shade around the transit locations. They wanted walkability, which Mark mentioned, the Walkable Urban Code. They wanted all of this to come together to support them. And the feedback was just tremendous. We also had about 30 businesses that we brought to the table, and the mayor was there as well at this business meeting, because it was critical to ensure, you know, businesses are members of the community. They're members of neighborhoods, and they're critical to making sure that we move this forward in a comprehensive way. So during this process, with feedback from residents and also direction from mayor and council, we identified 4 key areas that we wanted to focus on: infrastructure, preparedness, education, and housing. And each of those areas would have different interventions. Some would be newly created interventions, and some would be existing that we would enhance through this project. We're Cool is something that all the members of the council have been involved with over the years, have been out to the locations when we've done this outreach, and have helped support the growth of this program. It started with a grant from Cities of Service and support over 3 years to grow the program. And what the idea was simple. It was to connect transit-dependent residents to cooling centers and support during extreme heat. And it's truly a life-saving measure. When we started, we had a couple of outreach days. We handed out maps to those on transit that looked like they could use the support. And it was very successful. It's grown over the years. Under this mayor's challenge and our Heat Ready plan, we supercharged it. We had the opportunity, we had funding, we had support, we had partners, Valley Metro, Transit, we had the CERT program out of the fire department with volunteers. And we had great AmeriCorps Vista members, and one current member, past member, is actually on the mayor's staff, Willa Kao. Nick Roosevelt is another, and our current member is Elizabeth Planas. And each of them have gone out and really tried to connect this program to those in need. This last year, under the Heat Ready project and the Mayor's Challenge, we actually increased outreach by 60%. And that was through funding, but also working with Arizona State University. We were able to use heat data to target areas where the greatest need was for transit-dependent residents and the most extreme temperatures. And so that was significant. We actually had 10 days of outreach and distributed about 8,500 maps, and also had point of contact support through the CERT program where people were actually able to get that support. So this is just one example of an intervention that started 3 years ago through, again, support from Cities of Service, but through this project was able to grow and enhance. And we see no end in sight with this. So it's really exciting, and we look forward to presenting more to you in the future.
Thank you. And in addition to this outreach to the community, one of the partnerships that's really emerged over the last couple of years has been a really increased partnership where President Crow called the city manager and said, we really need to make sure our research is actually affecting policy and things that the city is doing, and how can we do that better? And it's interesting, as we went into literature reviews of study of heat on cities from universities, the preponderance of research, we are the epicenter of research on heat. Everyone is studying heat here in Phoenix, and most notably ASU with hundreds of research projects where historically the process was they do papers in order to be published. That was their main goal. And now it's like, how can we actually make and implement and make a difference in that? And so I actually have Dr. Redmond here, who's founding director of School of Sustainability, but also has been very much a partner with us in this process to really talk about how the significance of our partnership and their ongoing commitment going forward regarding addressing heat in the future.
Thank you, Mark. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Councilwoman, thank you for giving me the opportunity to endorse this. We're to commit ourselves to ASU's participation going forward. We've been actively working with the city manager's office and the city council department heads on new ideas on heat for the past couple years, and this reflects President Crow's commitment of ASU to investment in the local community and to making research oriented toward solutions as well as toward publications and so forth. I think the city of Phoenix has been probably ASU's best partner going in the past, and we're hoping that continues to be the case. And obviously the emergence of the downtown campus is an amazing success both for you and for us. Dealing with summer heat, as you've heard, is a priority. For many of us who have lived here, I've lived here 35 years and intend to live the rest of my years here, this is probably the issue of our time that we locally can address. It has health implications, it has economic implications, and for many of us, it has just quality of life implications in terms of recreation, outdoor assembly, extending the time our children and grandchildren going to playgrounds. This is not trivial and is one of our initial projects going forward. So we're looking for better ways to do that, and though there are probably over 100 researchers dedicated to local heat research at ASU, we can't really do this alone. Lots of science has come forward, lots of new ideas, but they remain at the level of ideas unless we have partners who actually want to implement them on the ground. Going to Edison East Lake and working with people about sidewalks, about building orientation, about material coatings. This is where our research really takes life, and we need a partnership, and Phoenix has been a great partner, and we're hoping under this program to make it an even bigger partner than before. This slide just showcased some of the institutes at ASU and academic units that have strong commitments to working on heat going forward. But there's another side of the story than just the actual research itself, and that is, what is the perception of Phoenix in the larger national and even international stage? And we at ASU are very sensitive to this, and this has been one of President Crow's priorities, is to get people not to think of us as a second tier, but as a first tier in everything we do. Clearly, heat is on the mind of everyone else when they come visit Phoenix, when they talk about it. I went to a comedian's performance. Trevor Noah was here a couple months ago, and his first shtick was all about the heat in Phoenix. I went to a musical concert where it doesn't even have to be about comedians, and they talk about heat. Well, we have a chip on our shoulder, but we have a chip to overcome. And happily, this kind of program, I think, is the way to turn this all around. Just under a month ago, Scientific American, which, as you probably know, is the most widely read scientific magazine in the world, had a feature article on how Phoenix is working to beat urban heat. It was a very supportive, positive article about one of the programs, including Edison East Lake, that was saying, we can do more. Phoenix is beginning to address it. It reflects the Bloomberg initiative that Michael was just talking about. And I think if we do more of this, if we collaborate together, that we really will find that the outside world responds well to this, and I think that's important in terms of maintaining our high desirability for tourism, for new residents, and for economic growth. This is the kind of diagram academics make, so you don't have to pay too much attention to it. But the basic point is that this is an iterative affair. We experiment, we try things in the lab, we try them on the ground, we work together hopefully with the city or county or other entities and saying, is there a benefit that deserves the cost that this kind of intervention will call for? And then we bring it and hopefully into the public forum. And so you're the little building with the flag on top that's in virtually every stage of the way. We're the graduation cap, which is in sort of creating the products and beginning to work together with you to find test beds and new implementations. So in sum, what I want to say is that this has already been a successful collaboration. We aren't here, frankly, asking you for money. But we think we're asking you for opportunities and for working together, and the energy of your department heads and staff really make this a possible collaboration that I think will change the way Phoenix is not only perceived, but the way we experience it in the future. Thank you.
And to conclude, we really look at what, as we as a city, can design for heat mitigation adaptation can we do? And we actually came up with this. We were together saying, we don't want to make all this for naught. What is it? What is the wow thing that we could do that would really make a difference? And the things that we realized, and has actually been pretty exciting for both our close partnership with ASU, is actually look at, number one, to over the next 2 years work with our residents and our businesses to come up with an urban heat mitigation and adaptation plan that we can actually address over the long term, look at moving our city and cooling our city. And not just cool the entire city, but look at cooling where the places people are and people are walking, like being very strategic, and where are we putting our infrastructure and how do we create those cool corridors, that network of cool corridors throughout our city. So that urban heat mitigation adaptation plan is one. The other one, is, I kind of mentioned, was that as we even talk with other cities about what is it to be heat ready, they said, well, you guys are the experts, you tell us. And so we really want to pilot this heat ready certification where we can define what it is to be heat ready from a policy and action and governance perspective. And so as we, over more than 2,200 cities are storm ready, of which Phoenix is one, just identified what that is. Well, we want to say, okay, here's what it is to be heat ready and ready for both extreme heat and increasing urban heat island. And the last area, also in partnership, all three of these in partnership with ASU, is also, we originally last year had with Harvard kind of introduced this walk shed model that looked at where are people walking based on where they live, based on zero-car households, and where the transit stops are, where the shops are, and the schools. And it created a model of showing where the pathway that people would take. And so we can use this to prioritize where we put our infrastructure. And so ASU has agreed to kind of work with us on developing this model so we can actually analyze neighborhoods, particularly vulnerable neighborhoods throughout our city, to figure out where do we really want to place infrastructure where the people are. So these three actions are kind of our ones going forward. And at this point, I'd love to hear your comments as far as our overall heat ready planning.
So the study that involved 2 neighborhoods, where were those neighborhoods and what made the critical differences in the 13 degrees? Do you recall?
In general, they were in West Phoenix, and the critical infrastructure was certainly green infrastructure, so lots more trees and green infrastructure, and the other one is actually a xeriscape, like it was nothing. There were very little trees, a lot of pavement, a lot of open sidewalks, and within the 2 communities. Yeah.
So how do you try to look at the issue of water versus, which is critical obviously, and trying to cool our temperatures? What are we doing to look at that?
Well, being, the vision and often a misconception about water is that you want to get to zero water use. Actually, you don't want to do that. It's just stay within renewable supplies. And actually, creating trees and creating cool urban environments is the highest and best use of water. So we don't want to waste water. And, we really, as a society, in all things we do, we just waste a lot. We waste a lot of energy and we waste a lot of everything we do. And so really thinking and having our water being true desert perspective is actually no. We use our water and control and manage our water. We've been thinking about it for 100 years of how to manage our water. And so using that for very important things, such as green infrastructure and such as tree infrastructure, is really a responsible way to actually manage within renewable surface water supplies. So that's how we design it.
And then as far as surfaces, are you looking at types of pavement? What, I don't know who would answer that one, but what
We
seems
all
to be
can, but,
successful?
I mean, this is actually a great opportunity, and I hope it'll come home in a variety of ways, but we're just entering a partnership with Mitsubishi Chemical, where they're going to sponsor some tests here in Phoenix on asphalt coatings. And if these are successful, it's $1 billion industry. And also what we're calling super cool building coatings. We know about painting roofs white, and there's some pros and cons, but mainly pros. But you can do more than that. And so we're going to enter into them to develop some super cool coatings that we'll want to be testing in Phoenix. And my dream actually is that part of this whole partnership leads to Phoenix being a sort of hot climate test center, and given many hot cities in the world, this can become a very big thing. And many years ago, for the auto industry, we were a test area for vehicles in the heat. I think there are 100 things now that cities and corporations need to look at, and we should be the home for that going on.
So are we partnering then with like the home builders, the multifamily industry to talk about how we develop our subdivisions and how we actually construct our homes?
Yes, absolutely. So it would cross over into, if you consider the walkable urban code, that's very much working with industry, especially if you want to look at expanding that to other neighborhoods. And as we look at the complete streets, it looks at how do we create some of this cool infrastructure, and then certainly implementation of tree and shade master plan, and working at how can we actually get trees into neighborhoods and new developments and actually get structured shade. I think structured shade's a really important part that we really haven't maximized here. It's a really great opportunity, and it's very water prevents water use, and so it's got some real great opportunity as well. So,
if I could add, Mayor, Councilwoman Stark, in the course of this work, we did reach out to partners, as I said earlier, and to your point, involved Valley Partnership specifically, but also SRP and public health organizations like Vitalist, and to engage them in this thinking. How do we tackle this problem in development and in all the work that we're doing? So yes, we expect and hope that the broader community will get excited about this too.
So can we look at a pilot project where we do allow shade and waive revocable permits? Have we been talking to streets transportation? Have we been talking to the legal department? Because I think that's a great idea, but I know there's a lot of liability if we do that. But I would love to do some kind of pilot project where we do have that kind of shade going on.
Yes, Mayor, Councilwoman Stark, I'm pleased that Planning and Development Director Alan Stevenson is here. He can attest to the fact that we've had many meetings on this topic. We have a working group that includes the Law Department and Streets Department, along with Planning Development and our Heat Ready team, to look at that and come up with some pilot or maybe some ordinance and zoning code changes that we might recommend to make it easier and perhaps incentivize that structured shade. So yes, we are actively working on that.
it's a brilliant idea.
Hi, I just have a few comments. This is an area that I'm very passionate about addressing. In fact, my first meeting as a council member was with Karen and Mark to look at urban heat, and I think we looked at the Trade and Shade Master Plan. It's something that definitely impacts my district, particularly West Phoenix. So count me in however I can be supportive with you all. And thank you, Michael, with your efforts with Cities of Service and Bloomberg, and really engaging with our residents to make sure that they're aware that this is an issue and an issue that can be addressed. Like you all previously mentioned, it's a very public transportation, walkable, very heavily reliant working class district. And so a lot of people don't know that they can have trees along their sidewalks and in their neighborhoods. I've actually seen more trees in where I live, so I just want to thank you all for your efforts and really highlight its importance. And again, just count me to be an advocate, a supporter, however possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Just for information discussion, there's no action required. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for the information. We always look forward when you come in to tell us what's going on, what's the latest, and the progress we're making. And thank ASU. Couldn't do it without you. Greatly appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next is Alan.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the subcommittee. I do have with me Adam Miller, who is the infrastructure financing team leader for the Planning and Development Department and oversees our impact fee program. The impact fee program is something that the Planning and Development Department oversees. There are 9 different impact fees that serve 7 departments, and so we work very closely with those departments who provide those services, along with the city manager appointed ad hoc task force, as well that includes stakeholders within the development community, as well as obviously the city council and the public to come up with our impact fees. We did come before the subcommittee last fall kind of with the introductory discussion of the program and what we were bringing forward with our new fee schedule. We're here today to talk about what we've been working on since then and also kind of go over the overall timeline. And then we'll be back to you in about May, probably June, for us to provide an actual fee update on what the proposed fees are. But we've continued to work with the ad hoc committee. And so Adam's going to give you some details in just a minute, but just for a brief refresher, the impact fees are things that the city charges for in our new growth areas for development. They are related to actual capital facilities. They can't be operation and maintenance fees, can't be included in them. It also can't be to repair or replace existing facilities. So we have made some slight changes as we've worked through this, where, for example, in the parks impact fee, if we're adding capacity to an existing park, we may be able to add additional ball fields and add other, playground equipment, those kind of things that's serving the capacity in some of those areas. We have been able to use impact fees even though the land might have already been acquired in the past, but that's really the only area where you can look at, and it's really because you're able to say and make the case to the state statute that we are increasing the capacity of recreational opportunities in that area. They are charged when building permits are purchased, and so that is why the planning department side of the department functions in the overall planning and putting it together. We're at here. On the development division side, that's where the fees are actually paid, and that's how we reconcile that. It's all part of one group there. In 2012, the state statute was amended that really limited the use of impact fees. And so you'll recall a couple months ago, we were here talking about some of the solid waste changes that were done. It also reduced park and library fees. It removed open space and trails abilities. It also limited community centers down to 3,000 square feet and libraries to a 10,000 square foot. So that's the maximum that we can include within those areas. I'm going to turn it over to Adam here to talk about some of the specifics.
Alan, can you blend impact fees with city money to build something larger than that?
Mayor, members of the subcommittee, yes, you can.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Alan. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. I just have a couple slides, a little more of an overview of the impact fee program, and then I'll get into some of the highlight some of the current activities with regard to an update that staff is working on currently. As you can see in the slide that lists the 9 categories that the city currently charges impact fees for. As Alan mentioned, it covers 7 departments covering our public safety, capital facilities, as well as recreation with parks and libraries, and some of the larger impact fees and cover our major infrastructure networks, a storm drainage system, particularly in the Southwest, our major arterial roadway network, water and wastewater networks, and we also have an impact fee for our water supply acquisition. As Alan mentioned, the impact fees are only charged in certain designated areas. The map identifies the northern and southern impact fee areas. These are really kind of the outer boundaries of the impact fee areas. The northern area is subdivided into 3 impact fee areas that overlap with districts 1 and 2. The southern area, shaded there in yellow, is divided into actually 5 sub-impact fee areas covering districts 8, 7, and 6 out in Ahwatukee. The water resource acquisition fee I mentioned previously applies to a different geography. This is a look at the map for water resource acquisition fees. The delineations that you see there are based on Salt River Project member lands. So I won't get into the nuances of our water portfolio, but I think Council is aware that we do have different requirements on how we use Salt River Project water supplies versus Central Arizona Project supplies and groundwater. So getting into some of the highlights of the update process, why does the city need to update impact fees? There are really kind of three areas that stand out there. Beginning with, we need our fees to keep up with inflation. The impact fees are charged to build facilities. If our revenues aren't coming in at a level that we can actually construct those facilities, then we're going to face a problem delivering what we've identified in the impact fee plans. We need to adjust for inflation. We also need to monitor growth and development activity, and we need to make adjustments as development changes. So we need to update growth projections. And then last, we're required by state law to take a look at our impact fees every 5 years. The last update took effect in 2015, spring of 2015. And so believe it or not, we're actually running up against that 5-year deadline with 2020 just upon us here soon. Did want to mention last fall, the city manager convened the impact fee task force, which is comprised of 17 members with different kind of development interests. So this includes representatives from agencies like the State Land Department, trade associations like the Home Builders Association, Central Arizona, the Multi-Housing Association, Valley Partnership is represented, as well as individuals representing residential and commercial builders. The ad hoc or task force has met 6 times. We anticipate probably 3 or 4 additional meetings through the spring before staff kind of takes a step back, takes account of the feedback that we've received from our stakeholders and begins to kind of compile the draft plan that we'll bring back to council. And I think Alan's going to cover kind of the schedule for the adoption process here in a little bit. So I mentioned one of the main reasons to update the impact fees is to keep up with inflation. Impact fee charges are calculated from infrastructure cost estimates. And these costs need to be updated regularly. It's important to be aware that most of the projects in the impact fee program have not been designed. So we're looking at kind of standardized, generic costs that we can apply broadly across the city. And there's really about 3 kind of main methods that we use to come up with these costs. If we have impact fee programs such as our fire protection and police program, where we've had pretty significant recent purchases on capital equipment, replacing engines. We have a new fire station being constructed currently at I-17 and Joe Max Road. These details provide us good information for our cost data going into the impact fee calculation. So we just kind of look at our actual expenditures in those instances. In other instances where we haven't had a lot of recent capital expenditures, we might have to look back to historic expenses and then adjust for inflation using an approved and accepted index, such as the engineering news record. And then finally, we have retained several consultants to help us conduct unit cost studies for some of the infrastructure systems that are just more complex, where they might have to look more broadly at comparable projects and then bring that information together to give us kind of the standard unit costs for some of the more detailed items. If you think about a water system, we're looking at not only different sizes of pipe, but also things like pressure reducing valves and lift stations at different sizes. And so all this information comes together through our unit cost studies. I have land acquisition cited there at the bottom of the table. You might have seen on one of the prior slides kind of the range in the impact fees across the different areas. That's not only because the mix of impact fees that are charges can vary by area, but also the cost of the improvements can vary by area. And land acquisition is probably one of the one of the better examples. So for some of our fee programs, we do need to go out and acquire land, and we try to do as best we can to kind of match what we think the land costs are going to be with the impact fee area. And that's what that land acquisition study is about. So the next series of slides provide an overview of the updated growth projections for the next planning horizon. We may have already mentioned that the changes to the state rule require that we plan for 10 years of growth. And so this next update, we're looking at the period of 2020 through 2029. Before I get into kind of the details of the growth projection, I did want to mention that the city retained Applied Economics to assist us in this work. Applied Economics is a local economics research firm, and essentially what we're looking to Applied Economics to help us with is translating population and employment projections into households and commercial building space. So we're not doing a lot of the macroeconomic analysis per se. We leave that to the state demographer's office and to MAG, but we use their data and translate that into constructed space, whether that's homes, apartments, or commercial space. Applied Economics then helped us make decisions on how to allocate that space, not only over the planning horizon, that 10-year period, but also geographically. And that last step of figuring out where the growth is going to take place is really critical in determining what infrastructure improvements are going to be included in the plan. You can imagine if we identify a parcel out in District 2 that doesn't currently have a road extended to it, but we think that parcel is going to develop, we need to include that road in the plan to make sure that we're collecting the fees to contribute to that project. So getting into the northern area, that's the map you're looking at here. We're anticipating that the majority of the growth is going to take place in the Rio Vista area, which is essentially west of I-17, kind of surrounding the Anthem Mall location. Also in North Black Canyon, which would be southeast of Carefree Highway and I-17, and then really kind of along the 101 corridor in Desert View, starting to build out Desert Ridge, moving into Paradise Ridge a little bit more, and toward the end of the planning horizon, moving north into the western portions of Azara, which is north of Pinnacle Peak, north of Desert Ridge. Despite there being thousands of undeveloped acres remaining in the northern impact fee areas, we really think the northern area is probably about 25% built out. We are projecting a reduction in growth rates over the next 10 years. And I have a few items I'd like to bring to your attention, kind of explaining why we're seeing that reduction in growth during this 10-year period, kind of in the short term, really, over the 10-year period. The first item I want to bring your attention to is Rawhide Wash. I understand the subcommittee received a presentation on the Rawhide Wash flood mitigation project at a recent meeting, so I won't get into the details of that. But as it relates to our growth projections, in the Paradise Ridge area, where you see the star moved onto the map, that project we don't expect to be completed until about midway through our planning horizon. And so it's essentially causing a delay in when we can start accommodating new development in that area. So we're not, in our growth projection, we're not really showing a lot of additional development activity in that Rawhide Wash floodplain area until after the project is done, probably in that 2024, 2025 time frame. And so you can imagine that if we're not starting until that period, we're not going to get the numbers that perhaps we will be moving forward after the project's been completed. The second item I just wanted to mention is kind of really an issue about land ownership that really applies across the entire North, which is to say the state land department owns the vast majority of undeveloped land in the North. There are really only a couple of parcels that are undeveloped and privately controlled today. We expect those to develop relatively quickly, and it won't be long before really all the remaining undeveloped land in the North is controlled by the state land department. That in itself isn't inherently a problem, but what we do need to pay attention to and be aware of is the state land department can only dispose their land through a very rigorous auction process. And so this is kind of a new condition that we're going to be experiencing in the north, and we're expecting that just the process itself is going to cause delays in development in that area. I sent the star in the North Black Canyon corridor location because we think that's where this is really going to start to reveal what the ultimate impact is. And the North Black Canyon corridor area has relatively smaller parcels that are controlled by the state land department, which is going to mean there's more auction transactions that need to take place. And then finally, wanted to highlight the Biscuit Flats area. Biscuit Flats is west of I-17 between the CAP Canal and Carefree Highway. This part of the city currently has no infrastructure services provided. We're not projecting any growth to this location in our current planning horizon, in large part because the lift, the cost to extend just backbone infrastructure to open up that area, to extend our road network and our water and wastewater network. The cost is just too great to spread across a period of 10 years and the growth numbers that we're projecting in that time frame. So as I mentioned, we are anticipating lower growth than our prior estimates had shown for the north. This is a comparison of our current plan, which was from 2015 to 2024, that's shown in the gray bars, and our updated projections in the red bars for 2020 through 2029. So the reduction isn't because we accommodated a whole bunch of units over the last 4 or 5 years, but because of some of these infrastructure constraints and structural challenges that we think we face in the north. We think this is really more of a short-term challenge, and as some of the infrastructure issues get addressed, we would expect subsequent growth projections to show higher levels of growth in the north moving forward. Okay, now we're looking at the southern impact fee areas. Much different situation in the south. In fact, you could kind of argue that the south has kind of moved through some of these challenges that we're starting to recognize in the northern areas, where a lot of the infrastructure was put in place during the last construction boom. It's not to say we don't have more important projects to do down there. The Durango Regional Conveyance Channel is a big project that I believe is underway in the Estrella area. But a lot of work was done during the last construction boom, not only on the infrastructure side, but also in preparing land for development. A lot of undeveloped land has already been rezoned in the southwest area, and so we anticipate where land is already zoned that a lot of the growth is going to take place in those locations, as well as to the adjacent parcels in the southwest. We also are anticipating looking forward to the completion of the South Mountain Loop 202, and anticipate with the completion of that freeway, that we'll see a resurgence of growth in the southwest area. As I just mentioned, the 202 completion, unlike Rawhide Wash that we're expecting to be completed kind of midway through the horizon, the 202 should be completed before 2020. I think it's scheduled to be completed this fall or next winter. And so really we're getting the full kind of 10-year, the benefit of the freeway through the entire 10-year projection in this instance. One interesting characteristic of the Southwest is that there are a lot of county islands, and this just introduces a little bit of uncertainty in our projection, both in terms of land development and the densities that may occur in the county islands, as well as just in terms of the process and the time that it takes to develop that land. Sort of similar to the state land department land ownership issue in the north. There's just more of a process, more of a time delay associated if county islands were to be annexed into the city and then go through a rezoning process. And here is just the comparison for the southern impact fee areas. Again, these are just kind of aggregate numbers comparing what we currently projected with what our latest update looks like. In the south, it's not so much a reduction in numbers that we saw in the north, more of a shift. And much of the shift from single family to more density and commercial development can be attributed to the completion of the 202. And with that, I'll turn it back to Alan.
So, Mayor, members of the subcommittee, I think the important thing and what we wanted to really get to you guys early about this discussion is that we know because of infrastructure costs and labor costs, you know, the fees are going to be going up. And so we do anticipate after we're done with our work with the ad hoc committee, you'll see on this that we come back to you in June as the first group with, hey, here's what those fees are. We anticipate that there'll be a fairly robust discussion about that because as Adam mentioned, you know, we can't include all of the land that folks in the development community would like us to, because at the end of the day, the cost would be so exorbitant that you wouldn't be able to sell and develop any of those lands because the market wouldn't bear it. So if we included the backbone infrastructure costs, for example, in Biscuit Flats, along with the stuff that we need in Desert Ridge and Paradise Ridge and North Black Canyon that are closer to having that infrastructure in place, the fee becomes very expensive. And so that's why we had to make some choices in where those areas are. And so we think that will be, you know, part of that discussion as well. You know, the good news is that this is a very lengthy process that's very prescribed by state law. It takes about 225 days to get through. And so you see here that the subcommittee will be in June. We'll come back, get some input from you guys. We'll then publish the draft to IFP as infrastructure financing plan. That will be out there and over the summer, and then we'll come back to the full council for the state-required first public hearing in August, and then come back to the subcommittee in October, and then the following month go to the full council for adoption, I should say later October, for the full IFP. And that's because it's broken out into a public hearing about should you or should you not adopt these fees. Then there's an actual public hearing required by state law of the full council to adopt the fees, and then there's the public hearing where you actually do it. So there's 3 different times it's going to go to council. The final one that we're currently targeting is December, and then state law allows for a 90-day period before they take effect, and so that's why you see the March 2020 date, which is why Adam was emphasizing that even though we're early in 2019, we're already pushing where we need to be for our 5-year update. I do think that the good thing about the changes that were made in the state statute does have that 5-year review. So it allows us to monitor those things a little more closely so that as development happens, we can adjust things sooner rather than later. It's just you know, a costly and time-consuming process to do that, but it does allow us to do that, to make adjustments should the economy be stronger than we anticipate, should there be development pressures in other areas. Those can go back and be addressed you know, in a shorter time frame. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think next is probably future items.
Right, Madam Chair, we're not going to need a meeting in April, is what I understand, and so the next meeting would be in May, and look forward to hearing about any agenda items that you'd like to bring forward.
Okay, very good. We are adjourned.